You ever think you're about to have the best vacation of your life, and instead, you end up discovering two things you didn't plan for. One, your sunscreen expired in 2019, and two, your wife has been playing lifeguard leapfrog while your kids are asking for more floaties. Yeah, buckle up. My name's Hank, and this is the sunburned, chlorine-splashed tale of how I caught my wife cheating not once, but twice, in ways that would make daytime TV writers quit out of jealousy. We'd been married 8 years, and I'll be honest, it wasn't all sandcastles and sunset walks. Marriage is work, like IKEA furniture building with instructions in Swedish and 3 missing screws. But we'd made it work because of 2 things: our kids, and because I thought I married someone who had basic respect for a wedding vow. Spoiler alert, I didn't. The trip to the resort was meant to be a reset. Me, my wife Tara, our 2 kids, Noah, age 7, and Lucy, age 4, plus water slides, room service, and a chance for me to finally finish my detective novel that's been in progress since 2016. The first clue something was off? Tara started wearing perfume to breakfast. Not just a light spritz, like walk through a fragrance cloud kind of situation. Who needs to smell like a blooming citrus orchard before hash browns? And then there was the lifeguard, Jessie, 20-something, with abs that looked like they had their own gym membership. Tara suddenly took a deep interest in pool safety. She watched the lifeguard like he was giving a TED Talk on how to rescue middle-aged women from emotional boredom. While the kids played Marco Polo, and I was 2 pages into my book, I noticed Jessie and Tara whispering near the towel stand. She laughed in that high-pitched, extra-friendly way I hadn't heard since our honeymoon phase. My gut twisted, but I told myself to relax. It was just harmless chatting, right? I was wrong. Harmless chatting turned into secret glances, long walks to the lobby, and Tara suddenly caring a lot about hydration, especially when Jessie was handing out water bottles. I didn't say anything at first. I'm not the type to scream in public or throw pool noodles in anger. I wanted to be sure, and that's where things took a turn. One afternoon, Tara told me she was going to the resort spa while I took the kids to the splash pad. I agreed. But Noah, bless his curious heart, had accidentally packed her old phone instead of his tablet in his backpack. I opened it to check, and that's when I saw the notifications, texts popping up from a contact named JS, things like, "Last night was incredible. Meet me by the lifeguard shack again. Your husband's clueless smirking face. Infidelity." There it was, written in emoji-enhanced betrayal. The air left my lungs like I'd belly flopped off the high dive. I kept it together for the kids, but my mind was racing faster than a water slide. She was caught cheating, and I wasn't just going to let it slide. Not this time. But wait, it gets better. I decided to play along. That night, I told Tara I had booked a solo night out for her, a massage and dinner, my treat, because I wanted her to relax. She looked guilty at first, then smiled like she just won backstage passes to Jessie's abs. While she got ready, I dropped the kids off at the resort's kids club and doubled back to follow her. She didn't go to the spa. She went straight to the staff-only corridor by the pool, and there he was. Jessie, the bronze betrayal himself. They didn't even wait to get out of sight before hugging like a Hallmark reunion special. I filmed it, not to go viral, just to remind myself later that I wasn't crazy. But here's the twist, the first twist anyway. As I was standing there, hiding behind a fake palm tree like a middle-aged ninja dad, someone tapped me on the shoulder. I turned around, expecting a security guard. Instead, it was a guy in a hotel polo shirt. He looked nervous. "You're not the only husband Jessie's been sneaking around with," he said. "You might want to check the guest list for room 312. That's when it hit me. There was another man. Tara wasn't just caught cheating once. She was doubling down like infidelity was on sale. And just like that, I realized the pool wasn't the only thing at this resort that was shallow and full of slippery surprises. After I heard that cryptic comment about room 312, my blood ran cold, and I didn't even bother asking the guy for details. There was no time to waste. I had a plan now, and if it meant digging deeper to uncover the truth, well, I was ready for it. Tara had already shown me one version of betrayal with Jessie, but now I had a hunch there was another layer, another affair I hadn't anticipated. The fact that there was another husband involved meant the stakes had just skyrocketed. This wasn't just a simple case of being caught cheating. It was an affair of Olympic proportions. I watched Tara for the next hour, pretending to read my book while she pretended to enjoy her spa time. After about 15 minutes, I slipped out of the pool area and made my way to the resort's front desk, asking for a list of guests in room 312. The desk clerk, a young woman who barely made eye contact, didn't bat an eyelash when I flashed my wedding ring and asked if she could check the name. I'm sure I looked like every other stressed-out husband in the world at that moment, but I had no idea just how much this night would end up flipping my world upside down. I already knew Tara's backstory, her job at the PR agency, the way she'd been working late for the past few months, but this was different. I didn't know who else she could possibly be seeing. Who could this other man be? I needed to know. I stood at the front desk, mentally calculating my next move when the clerk handed me a slip of paper. Room 312, named under someone called Liam Sutherland. The name didn't ring any bells, but I had a bad feeling about it. Without thinking too much, I started heading to the elevator. My thoughts were spinning, racing toward an inevitable confrontation. But as I got to the hallway that led to the room, something hit me. What if this was just another one of her work friends? What if I was wrong? Maybe this was all a misunderstanding. Then, I stopped dead in my tracks as I overheard Tara's voice. She was talking to someone, laughing too loudly. She never laughed like that with me. Not in months. My heart pounded as I peeked around the corner of the hallway and saw her leaning against the door of room 312 with her arm around none other than Liam Sutherland. The way they were looking at each other, close, intimate, like old friends who hadn't seen each other in years, was enough to make my stomach churn. I wasn't wrong. This was another affair, another layer of her betrayal, wrapped up in a shiny new package. I stood there frozen, my mind a blur of disbelief, confusion, and, yes, anger. I was seeing red. Tara had been caught cheating again, and she didn't even have the decency to hide it. But I wasn't about to make a scene, not yet. I wanted to watch, to gather the full picture. So I stepped back into the shadows, silently cursing the fact that I hadn't known this was coming. I felt like the universe had given me a front row seat to my own destruction. There they were, Tara and Liam, flirting, touching, and practically ignoring the fact that I was standing mere feet away. What did this mean for me? Did I confront them now, or did I wait? I wasn't sure how much more of this I could stomach. But I knew one thing. I wasn't leaving until I had proof, the kind of proof that made it impossible for Tara to deny her infidelity. I watched as she smiled at Liam like a schoolgirl, his hand lightly grazing her shoulder. A flicker of something darker twisted in my gut. If she thought she could get away with this, she was dead wrong. It was in that moment, standing there in that hallway with the weight of everything crashing down, that I decided. This wasn't just going to be about confronting Tara. No, I wasn't going to let this betrayal go without making sure it stung her in the way she deserved. Tara was playing a game, and I was about to flip the script. I quietly backed away from the scene, my mind made up. I'd spent too much of my life being the passive husband, the one who silently endured. But not this time. This time, I was going to let her know what it felt like to be truly caught off guard. I went back to the pool, trying to act like nothing had changed. Tara would be back soon, and I had to prepare. I needed to control the narrative, and for that, I had to remain calm. But underneath the surface, the anger simmered. Every little thing she'd done to betray me was now a piece in a much bigger puzzle. She had lied, manipulated, and dragged me through years of emotional neglect, and now I was going to do something about it. By the time Tara returned from her spa visit, the kids were finishing up their pool time, laughing, enjoying the kind of innocence that made everything else feel so irrelevant. I held it together as she returned, her face flushed with the excitement of another rendezvous. I didn't even flinch when she walked over, her smile fake, like she was trying to convince herself of something. So, she said, "How was the pool time?" The kids seemed to be having a blast. "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile. "They're loving it. You have fun." Her eyes flickered, and for just a second, I saw that familiar guilt. But I wasn't ready to confront her yet. I needed to make sure everything was in place first. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, I took the plunge. "So, about Liam." She froze, her eyes widening in a panic that only a cheater knows too well. "Who is he?" I asked, my voice steady. Tara swallowed hard, her mouth dry. "Hank, it's not what you think." But I wasn't listening anymore. I had already decided I wasn't going to let her rewrite the story this time. This wasn't just about her infidelity anymore. It was about something bigger, the revenge I was going to take, not out of spite, but because she had to know that I wasn't a fool to be taken for granted anymore. I could see Tara's eyes widen, her lips trembling like she was trying to come up with some excuse, some lie that would make all of this vanish into the air like a bad dream. But I wasn't having it. This wasn't the time for her to spin a web of half-truths and clever wordplay. I had waited long enough, been patient for too many years, and now I wasn't going to sit in silence anymore. Her infidelity had been festering beneath the surface for months, and now I was finally ready to address it head-on. Her initial reaction was what I expected, a mix of guilt and disbelief, followed by a quick attempt to downplay the situation. "Hank, please, you're overreacting." "It's not like that," she said, her voice shaking, but I could tell she wasn't entirely sure of herself. She had no idea what I had already uncovered. "Liam and we're just friends. He's a lifeguard. You know how it is with poolside talk." I stared at her for a moment, fighting the urge to yell, to lash out. But I held it together, not because I was trying to be noble or calm, but because I needed her to know how much I had figured out. I wasn't blind anymore. "Tara, this isn't about some innocent chap by the pool. This is about you cheating behind my back, not just with Jesse, but with Liam too. I know about room 312. I know everything." Her face drained of color, and she immediately looked away, unable to meet my gaze. For a split second, I saw that flicker of panic in her eyes, and I knew she was trapped. She hadn't expected me to come this far. She hadn't thought I would dig deep enough to find out the truth. And that's when the anger started bubbling up, but I kept it in check. There was a part of me that wanted to scream, to throw her lies in her face, but I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. This wasn't about me losing control, it was about me taking back what I had lost. Her attempt to downplay things wasn't just frustrating, it was insulting. I had seen the text messages, the late-night meetings, the sneaking around. It wasn't some casual fling. Tara had been involved in something deep, something hidden behind the mask of a picture-perfect family. "You're telling me that after all the years we've spent together, all the things we've built, you were having an affair? With multiple people, no less." My voice was quieter now, but the disappointment weighed heavier than any anger could. She opened her mouth, but the words didn't come out right. I didn't mean for it to happen," she stammered, as if that somehow made it better. It just happened, Hank. You didn't notice, you didn't care enough." I cut her off, unable to take the excuses any longer. "No, Tara, this isn't on me. This is on you. I've been here, taking care of things. I've been supporting you, handling the kids, and all along, you've been out there with Jesse and Liam, hiding behind the lies you've told me and everyone else. I'm done with the excuses." Her eyes welled up with tears, but they didn't faze me. Not anymore. This wasn't the time for me to comfort her. She had made her choices, and now she had to face them. But she still tried, still reached out with that familiar desperation in her voice. "Hank, please. I'm sorry. I never wanted this to happen. I love you. I do. I didn't mean to hurt you." The words were hollow, meaningless. I had heard them before, and they were as empty as they had been the first time she said them. Her apology meant nothing now. All I could hear were the lies, the hidden meetings, the secret calls. This wasn't about love. It was about her seeking something that I couldn't give her anymore. It was in that moment that I realized something important. This wasn't just about the betrayal of our marriage. It was about me regaining control of my own life. I had spent so much of my time letting things slide, pretending that everything was okay, when deep down, I knew I was being taken for granted. I had been fooled for too long, and now it was time for me to act. I didn't confront her right away. I wasn't going to make a scene in front of the kids. Instead, I spent the next few hours gathering my thoughts, thinking about what my next move would be. I wasn't going to let her walk away from this unscathed. She needed to understand that actions have consequences, and this kind of infidelity, this kind of double life, had cost her more than she realized. That night, after the kids were asleep, I pulled out my phone and started drafting the text messages that would set the stage for my revenge. I wasn't going to drag this out. I wasn't going to let her think she could get away with everything, like it was just another bad chapter in our marriage that we could rewrite. No, this was different. She had made her choices, and now it was time for her to feel the weight of her decisions. I sent the first message to Jesse. It was straightforward, direct, and calculated. "I know what you've been doing with my wife. You should know that I have proof, and I'm not going to let this go." The second message went to Liam with a slightly more threatening tone. "You may think you've gotten away with something, but you haven't. I'm coming for you. I've already started to make sure the truth gets out." The next morning, I acted normal. I helped the kids with breakfast, got them ready for the day like nothing had changed. But inside, I was seething. Tara had no idea what was coming for her. When she got up, I acted like nothing had happened. I asked if she wanted to join me at the pool with the kids. She hesitated for a moment, looking around like she was trying to figure out what was wrong. but I didn't give her the satisfaction of asking. I just smiled and walked out. She followed me, still oblivious to what was about to unfold. But as we walked past the pool, I saw Jesse sitting on a chair, glancing at his phone. He looked up at me, but instead of saying anything, he just turned his eyes away quickly, a nervous energy rolling off him. Tara didn't notice anything, but I could feel the tension building between us. This wasn't just about catching her in the act anymore. This was about sending a message. And trust me, she was going to get it. The day after I sent those texts to Jesse and Liam, I could feel the storm brewing. The atmosphere at the resort had shifted. Tara still hadn't figured out that I knew the full truth, but I could see her trying to play it off, acting like everything was fine, like nothing had changed between us. The problem was, I knew everything had changed, and every time she looked at me, I could see the flicker of guilt she couldn't hide. It was subtle, but it was there, like the ghost of a lie lingering in the air between us. She kept her distance throughout the day, making awkward small talk with the kids while I stayed a few steps behind, pretending to enjoy the vacation. But I wasn't here for fun anymore. I was here for justice, for the truth to come to light, and I wasn't going to let her weasel her way out of this. That afternoon, while the kids were off doing some supervised activity, I got a text from Jesse. It was short, terse, and completely unexpected. I know you have proof. What do you want from me? I could feel my blood pressure rise. He was scared, and I loved it. This wasn't some teenager who thought they could flirt their way out of trouble. No, Jesse was an adult, and he knew exactly what was on the line. But the thing about people who get caught cheating is that they think they can talk their way out of anything. Jesse wasn't any different. He was trying to negotiate, trying to wriggle out of the consequences like a snake. But I wasn't in the mood for his games. I'd already sent him a clear message. This was about more than just a reprimand. This was about making sure he paid for what he'd done. I replied simply, I want you to stay away from my wife. If I catch you near her again, I'll make sure the entire resort knows about what you've been doing. I didn't wait for his reply. He was probably shaking in his boots. He had no idea how far I was willing to go to make sure this didn't just slip into the background, another hidden affair forgotten over time. Tara had betrayed me in the worst way, and I wasn't about to let her or Jesse off the hook. This was just the beginning. Later that evening, I met with Liam. I had to do it. I had to confront him, face to face, to see the fear in his eyes and to make sure he understood the consequences of his actions. I knew where he was staying, a separate guest building that housed the staff. It was supposed to be off limits to regular guests, but I had made sure to find out where it was. I walked up to his door without hesitation, knocking firmly. When he opened it, his eyes widened, and I could see the panic flash in his expression. He hadn't expected me, but I didn't care. I was there for one thing, to make sure he understood the gravity of what he had done. Liam, I said, my voice calm but filled with a quiet fury. We need to talk. He looked around nervously, probably hoping someone would rescue him, but it was just the two of us in that hallway. Look, man, I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't know she was married, he started, his voice shaky, but the words felt rehearsed. He was trying to buy himself some time, trying to get me to soften. But I wasn't interested in his excuses. Save it, I cut him off, stepping closer. You knew exactly what was going on. Don't insult me. This isn't just about some fling, Liam. This is about breaking trust. You don't get to play the I didn't know card after all this time. You made a choice, just like she did. I could see the panic in his eyes now. He took a step back, running his hand through his hair. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I didn't think you'd find out. I laughed bitterly. You didn't think I'd find out? You really believed you could get away with this? With everything you've done? I'm done with the lies, Liam. And I'm done letting people walk all over me. So here's the deal. Stay away from my wife. Don't contact her. Don't even look at her. If you do, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly who you really are. Your job, your reputation gone. And trust me, I can make that happen. Liam's face went pale as he nodded rapidly, terrified of what I might do. But I wasn't interested in his fear. I didn't need him to be scared of me. I just needed him to understand that this was over for him. No more games. No more pretending. This was about making things right, but not just for me. This was about showing Tara the consequences of her actions. If she thought she could walk away from this without feeling the sting, she was wrong. She was going to understand just how far I was willing to go. When I left Liam's building, I walked back to our room, my mind racing. It wasn't just the confrontation that was wearing me down. It was the knowledge that I had to make sure this was the end of it. Tara had been caught cheating not once, but twice. And it wasn't just about catching her in the act anymore. It was about ensuring she couldn't spin this narrative any longer. If I didn't act now, if I didn't follow through, she would think she could get away with it, like it was nothing more than a minor mistake. That night, after the kids were asleep and Tara was pretending to read a book, I sat down with her. I could feel the tension in the room like it had taken on a life of its own, suffocating the space between us. She avoided eye contact, and I could tell she was already preparing for another round of excuses. But I wasn't having it. Tara, I began, my voice steady. I know everything. I know about Jesse. I know about Liam. You've been caught cheating. And now I'm done. Her eyes welled up with tears again. But this time, I didn't feel sorry for her. I felt anger. I felt betrayed. She reached for my hand, but I pulled it back. Don't touch me. You've destroyed everything. You've lied, manipulated, and disrespected me for far too long. I paused for a moment, letting the words sink in. This wasn't going to be an easy conversation, and I wasn't interested in trying to save her from the pain of the situation. I'm not here to save this marriage. I'm here to make sure you understand the consequences of your actions. You'll be lucky if you ever see me the same way again. She opened her mouth to say something, but I stopped her. There's nothing left to say. You've made your choices, and now I'm making mine. Don't try to apologize again. It's too late. As she sat there, silent and broken, I knew that this was only the beginning. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally in control. Tara had betrayed me, and I was going to make sure she knew the cost of that betrayal. The following morning, everything felt different. The kids were excited to head out for another day at the resort's pool, but I couldn't shake the weight of the decisions I had made. Tara, on the other hand, had no idea what was coming next. She tried to act normal, giving me a small smile over breakfast as she asked if I wanted to join her and the kids at the pool, but I wasn't interested in pretending anymore. It had been too long, too many years of pushing my feelings aside to keep the peace, to ignore the cracks in our marriage. But now, the truth was out, and there was no putting the pieces back together. Not after everything she had done. She was already standing in the pool of her own lies, and I wasn't going to throw her a lifeline. I didn't say much that morning. I kept the conversation short, just enough to keep up appearances for the kids. I could tell Tara was still trying to figure out how much I knew, but I was going to let her stew in that uncertainty. I wasn't going to make it easy for her. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me break. She had taken everything for granted, and now it was my turn to make sure she understood the consequences. We finished breakfast, and I told her I needed to run a few errands. She didn't question it, probably assuming I was just dealing with the stress in my own way. I knew she was still convinced that I was going to cave, that I would eventually let her talk her way out of it like I always had before. But not this time. Not now. I spent the rest of the morning putting my plan into motion. The resort was packed with people, and I knew I had to act fast if I was going to make sure the message was clear. I didn't just want to confront Tara. No, I needed the entire resort to know what had been going on behind closed doors. I wasn't just getting revenge for myself. I was getting revenge for the years of lies, for the feeling of betrayal that had been gnawing at me for so long. I couldn't just let this slide. It was time for the truth to come to light, and I was going to be the one to bring it out. By the time I returned to the pool area, the kids were already playing in the shallow end, and Tara was lounging on a chair with her sunglasses on, pretending like everything was fine. I walked over to the lifeguard stand, where Jesse was sitting, staring at his phone. He looked up at me, and for a moment, the realization hit him. I could see the panic flash across his face, and I knew then that he wasn't just worried about me. He was worried about his entire life crumbling beneath him. He knew what was coming, and he had no idea how to stop it. "Jesse," I said, my voice calm but firm, "I think it's time we had a little chat." His face turned white, and he stood up, trying to maintain some kind of composure. I don't know what you're talking about," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "Cut the crap," I replied, not in the mood for his games. "You know exactly what I'm talking about. You've been sneaking around with my wife, and I'm not going to let you get away with it. I've already told you what would happen if I caught you. And now, here we are." I wasn't shouting, but I could see that the few words I spoke felt like a sledgehammer to him. He didn't know whether to stand there and lie or run, but he couldn't do either. He was trapped. I could feel Tara's eyes on us now. She must have realized something was happening because she stood up, walking toward us with that fake calm she always wore when she was trying to keep things under control. She put a hand on my arm, like trying to steady me, but I wasn't having it. Not anymore. I turned to her, and for the first time in ages, I didn't see the woman I'd married. I saw someone completely different, someone who had betrayed me in the most humiliating way possible. You're going to regret this, Hank, Tara said, her voice trembling, but there was no confidence left behind her words. This isn't what you think it is. No, I said, shaking my head slowly. This is exactly what I think it is. You've been caught cheating. You've destroyed everything we built. And I'm not going to stand by and let you pretend it didn't happen. Tara's eyes started to well with tears, but I wasn't about to give her sympathy. Not after everything she'd done. I'm done with your excuses, Tara. I've seen the texts. I've seen the lies. You don't get to act like you didn't make choices. You don't get to pretend that this is just a momentary lapse. You chose this. You've been caught, and now you're going to face the consequences. Her face fell as she finally realized I wasn't bluffing. Her gaze shifted to Jesse, who was nervously glancing around, as if hoping someone would step in and save him. But no one came to his rescue. He was alone in this mess. Tara, though, was still trying to hold on, her voice a little shaky now as she pleaded. Please, Hank, don't do this. You don't need to tell everyone, please. We can fix this. We can. No, I interrupted. It's too late for that. You've made your choices, and now everyone's going to know who you really are. I'm done pretending, Tara. I turned to Jesse, my eyes narrowing. You need to pack up and leave. This resort doesn't need people like you bringing that kind of drama into it. Jesse hesitated, looking like he might protest, but he didn't. He knew I wasn't bluffing, and after a long, awkward silence, he slowly started gathering his things. Tara, still in denial, tried to reach out to him. Jesse, wait. But he didn't stop. He turned and walked away, leaving Tara standing there, her eyes wide in shock. I knew she was stunned by how quickly everything had unraveled. She was used to being in control, used to keeping things buried, but I wasn't going to let her continue her game any longer. I wasn't going to let her think she could walk away from the wreckage she had caused without facing the truth. When Jesse was out of earshot, Tara turned back to me, her face crumpled in disbelief. I don't understand, Hank. Why are you doing this? She asked, her voice a mere whisper now. You don't get to ask me that, I said coldly. You've been lying to me for months. You've been betraying me in every way possible, and now you want me to feel sorry for you? No, I'm done. As the weight of everything hit her, Tara started to break down. But I didn't feel the urge to comfort her anymore. Not after the lies, the years of pretending. There was no going back for either of us. And as I looked around the pool area, I knew this was only the beginning of a long process of healing, but it was a start. For the first time in a long time, I felt free.